I am so excited because today I have an amazing guest, and I am going to predict the future and say this is going to be one of our most powerful episodes. I'm going to do a quick bio and then let him say hello. We have Antonio, is it Garrido?
Garrido, but it's actually Garrido, but don't hurt yourself. Garrido.
Sounds good. Well, Antonio, this is the bio that I have in front of me, but I'm going to share a little bit more about Antonio. But he has over 25 years in senior leadership positions with world-class organizations. As the founder and president of My Daily Leadership, he specializes in leadership transformation, shaping high-performance leaders out of highly stressed and overworked leaders. Antonio blends his own vast commercial experience with proven techniques to embed a unique brand of leadership development. He is a serial entrepreneur, successful business coach, charismatic speaker, award-winning author, and leader of small private businesses right up to Fortune 60 companies. That bio is great. But I'm going to share something I think even more important about Antonio in a minute. But Antonio, I just want to just let you say hello.
Hello. Hello, Billy. Thanks ever so much for the invitation. I imagine that half of your audience are now thinking, surely that isn't the accent that's coming out of that name. But anyway, there you are. We'll talk about that perhaps later. Normally people go, Antonio Garrido, that wasn't the accent I was expecting. But
Yeah, we'd love to get into that. I just want to
yeah.
share a quick background. I don't just bring anybody on the show. They're especially as time has passed, it's really just people that I think will add tremendous value. And I love when there's a personal connection. So I've known Antonio, I don't know if it's over a decade or so. I first met him through my time with Entre Leadership. And at that point, Antonio was coming in, doing some trainings. A lot of my colleagues were working with Antonio, mostly in sales, I believe, at that point, through the Sandler system, which I'd love to touch on in a moment. But I just loved Antonio's content. He is just a genuine guy, great storyteller, packed with lessons, knowledge, and wisdom. And full disclosure, as I reflect back, I think back to my time there, and I was at a point where I had this tremendous turnaround, which many of you know, and I was doing well, I guess relatively speaking. And I think that I didn't embrace some of the teaching enough. I was a little bit arrogant at the time, and sometimes I think there's good is the enemy of great kind of thing, where when I looked at my results compared to industry standards, I was beating the standard. I had a very good close rate, a very good profitability, and I was like, yeah, what is this guy going to teach me? But so I regret that. And I think, I mean, things have worked out pretty well, but who knows what would have happened if I would have embraced it more. And then now, over a decade later, I have really dove more into Antonio's material. In fact, this was not planned because I'm having him today, but on my desk there are, for those watching the video, I have two of his books right here, and they really are here, not because he's here, because they are on my desk because I actually read them. There we go. There's My Daily Leadership, and there's Asking Questions the Sandler Way. I've shared enough there, but Antonio, I'm excited to chat with you. Thanks for being on. Would love to start with a little bit about like how you got into this world. Just what is what is your story?
Okay, well, I'll try and keep this reasonable. Thank you for the invitation. I'll try and keep this reasonably brief. It's probably only interesting to me and my mum. When I first came out of university a million years ago, because you know, Billy, I'm fairly ancient, I was an architect. I then, more through luck than judgment, I genuinely, when I think about it now, I'm not sure how it even happened, but I found myself pretty soon running departments and then divisions and then businesses. And I was lucky enough to have the most amazing leaders as bosses, right? And I'll tell you maybe a couple of stories about those as we go along. And the organizations that I was working for just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until ultimately I was running, as you say, Fortune 60 companies with thousands of, I think the largest company I ran had 17 or 18,000 people and billions in revenue, like big companies. And then about 14 or 15 years ago, for lots of reasons, my wife and I, who have 4 children, we decided to go and kind of semi-retire in Miami, right? You can tell from the accent, I'm not a local lad. So we decided to go and live in Miami. But your government don't make it terribly easy for people to do that. So you can't just show up in the country and just, do what you want. So, but if you invest enough money, they kind of let you in. So I bought a business there. It was a franchise, part of Sandler Training, which is a sales training organization. And we were this close. Shall we buy a pool cue company, which would have been pretty cool, right? Or should we buy the Sandler business? And they kind of wanted us at the same time, and so we did a pretty good deal, and we started the business in Miami. From a standing start of zero. When I say I didn't have a little black book and I didn't know anybody and I didn't even have a bank account and I didn't have a social security number, I mean I landed on the plane, no offers, no photocopy, like nothing. I want to make that point very clear, right? Mm-hmm. So we started the business, and the first year was dreadful, quite dreadful. And I couldn't understand it because I'd always been hugely successful in business. And I came from a family of entrepreneurs. My father had his own businesses, my uncles and cousins and everybody. And I thought I knew what was what, right? So I started this business and I thought, how can I possibly fail? And genuinely, Billy, in the first year, and we sunk a lot of money into this, right? And we told the kids, we're going to go and live in Miami. Come if you like, don't if you don't. And we put quite a bit of money into the move. And in the first year, if memory serves, we did $68,000, right? Maybe it was 57. Anyway, not a lot. I was quite used to, I was running Fortune 60 companies, right? And they tend to pay pretty well. And it was quite a blow to my ego, I have to say, for the first year, where we did, effectively 2/5 of the square root of bugger all, right? And I just couldn't understand it. And anyway, so the first year we did practically nothing. The second year, we did a little bit better, and I'm going to say about 100,000. I mean, this wasn't enough to justify the bonkers move. And it got to, I remember the day quite clearly. And I remember, I'm sure you've heard of the Cortez story. You must have. Everybody's heard of that story. Yep. But just in case some of your listeners quite haven't. When Cortez, who came from Spain, landed somewhere in Chile or Peru or somewhere like that in South America, and they all kind of got off the boat, he sent one of the chaps back in a rowing boat, and they set fire to their boats, and the boats sank. The sailors went bananas, right? Because that's it, no plan B, right? There was no way out. And Cortez basically said, guys, we've got 2 choices. We either die on this beach, right, or we go forwards and make a decision. And so there were just, maybe 50 or 60 men. We're not talking thousands. We're talking like 50 or 60 men with some muskets, some flags, and some swords. And of course, they eventually, colonized all of South America, right? But my point is this, that when they had realized there was no plan B, and it was kind of do or die, and I don't want to over exaggerate it, but when I woke up one morning and thought, look, this is it, right? I don't even want there to be a plan B. So I'm either going to do this or I'm not, and like make a firm decision. So the first 2 years were dreadful. And then within the next 5 years, maybe 6 years, we had the third largest sales training company in the world, right? So we went from genuinely zero to multi-millions on a day that pivoted on a decision.
Wow.
And in terms of the whole of the Sandler organization, and I'm kind of, although I still own, I still own that business. I'd talk about this business as well and other businesses. I don't want this to be a huge advert for Sandler, but we became the fastest growing office in the history of the company. Wow. It's like 4 years old. And so we did rather well. And what changed? And it's a little bit like, I often tell people, and by the way, I do ramble a little. So when I'm getting boring, just scratch your nose or something and I'll know it's time. But I often tell this story, and it's a true story and it's a remarkable story. And it happened in England. It happened in Iffy Road. And I think it was 1959 or 64. If I tell you who it was, maybe you know the story. But I'm sure lots of your listeners and audience will know, because you're all kind of a bit sporty, right? So Roger Bannister, if that doesn't give it away, I'm going to say 4 Minute Mile or breaking the 4 minute mile. Here's the interesting thing, I think, the most interesting thing about the Roger Bannister story or the breaking of the 4 Minute Mile was in the history of mankind, up to the day that Roger Bannister broke the sub 4 minute mile, it had never been done. Doctors, physicians, medics, scientists, they had all said that a human body cannot run a mile in less than 4 minutes. It's not improbable, it's impossible. And they were right up till the point that they weren't, when Roger Bannister came along and he ran a sub 4 minute mile. And that's interesting, but that's not the really interesting thing. The really interesting thing is, in the history of humankind, it had never been done. And then Roger Bannister did it. And then 2 weeks later, another guy did it. And a week after that, another guy did it. And 2 weeks after that, some other guys did it. And now high school kids do it. So what changed? Because it wasn't technology, we hadn't evolved, it wasn't kind of, and this is in the day when runners weren't professional. He was a student. He was a chemistry student at Oxford University, and he didn't have nutritionists and coaches and psychologists and all these people helping him. He just had a belief that he was going to do it, and he did it. And then once he did it, everyone else did it, and now everybody does it. Well, apart from you and me, but nearly everybody can do it, right? So what changed? Yeah. Only that the belief that it could be done changed. That's all that changed. They said it was impossible, not improbable, impossible to climb Everest without supplementary oxygen. And it kind of was, until Hillary and Tenzing did it. And now if you climb Everest and you tell people you use oxygen, everybody thinks you're a sissy, right? The point is that a lot of these things all pivot around belief. And until I kind of decided that I was going to be successful and embrace the discomfort that I was going to have to face, and I'll come back to that, then I didn't do it. And whilst ever we were kind of floundering and trying to figure it out, I always had the quote unquote excuse of, well, I'm British. I'm actually not Spanish, but I've got a British accent. I'm not from Miami. I'm not American. People don't understand us. People can't connect with us. they were kind of my reasons, my excuses, until the day I decided, look, are we going to do this or are we not? Right? Am I going to be Cortez or am I not? And then, and accepted all the discomfort that was going to come with that. And then I decided I was, and then things changed. And I started to plant my feet. I started to, well, I'll tell you all the things I did in a minute. My point is this. Then the organization made us the mentor of all new all new offices. So anytime there was then a new office, they had the leader of that office spend time talking to us to help them get their mindset right. Because this whole thing, leadership and business growth, pivots on having the right mindset, being all in, and all that being all in entails. And lots of your leaders will be now thinking, I'm all in. I work 70 hours a week. Don't talk to me about all in. There's a difference between work ethic and commitment. A huge difference. And I want everyone that we coach and everybody that we train and everybody we teach to understand the difference between work ethic and commitment. And so many small business owners have an incredibly high work ethic, but actually they have low commitment, which sounds like it's not quite. It sounds like, well, work ethic is commitment, and it isn't. And if I say to leaders, hey, think about who on your team are the most committed, what they tend to think is, oh, George. And I said, well, why George? Well, George always volunteers to tasks. He's the first one to say I'm in. He'll answer his emails at 8:30 on a Saturday night. He hasn't taken a holiday in 4 years. And they're kind of like, so George is like the most committed guy we've got. And I go, I don't know that he is. He sounds like he's certainly got high work ethic and he believes that there is some kind of virtue in hard work. But being committed, it's not the same as work ethic. Being committed is prepared to do the difficult things that you have to do in order to be successful. And that commitment is not easy to find. And it doesn't come without a decision. So then what happened is the business started to do incredibly well. And I'll give you lots of ideas and things that we did to make sure that the business did terribly well. And when, by the way, we would then mentor new offices opening, we'd have a guy that, for example, says, oh yeah, I've been with Hewlett Packard for 20 years. I've got enough money in the bank. We'll be okay for a few years. And I would say to them, you will not do the work that you need to do until that money runs out. When that money runs out, right, how long do you think you've got with the money you've got? And they'll say 2 years. I said, well, call me in 2 years. Call me when the money runs out, because the money's going to run out. And then call me then, and then let's get to work. So I think that principle of there genuinely is no plan B. And there are ways that you trap yourself into that. And if you want to talk about how we do that, it's really, really important.
Yeah, Antonio, let's stop there for a minute. I think that's such a good point. One of the things I often say is that with gym owners, I think a lot of this stuff applies. Two things, just to kind of recap some of what you said. You shared a lot. The first thing is the whole Roger Bannister 4-minute mile. There's tons of examples like that, and probably like a lot of industries, but the one I'm in and the one I know is the gym business. And I think, lots of people just have the belief that maybe I can do what this guy down the street is doing, and there's not this like higher level of thinking, like, why not me? Why can't I blow that out of the, blow the doors off of the whatever, just trying to scrape by.
Yep.
And when it comes to how we develop that mindset, I often say that I have been, and I don't say this to brag, but believe it or not, I think you will believe it. You've been coaching lots of people. There are lots of gym owners, business owners, and I mean lots, that actually don't pay themselves. And it's like, how do you run this business working 70 hours a week and not pay yourself? But you struck a chord, because I think one of the reasons that I've seen is this. I have been in business now for decades,
Yeah.
And I have never not paid myself.
Right.
And the reason why is actually relatively simple, and that is I have five children that like to eat. And if I don't pay myself, they don't eat. It's as simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I see a lot of these people who aren't paying themselves, they think they're able to not pay themselves. Maybe they have a spouse that brings in money, or maybe they have parents that help them, which is oftentimes the worst thing.
Yeah.
But I think to your point, it's in my mind, like it is so far from an option. Like it is not an option. Like that has to happen. I'm going to do whatever it takes for that to happen. So with all that said, I'm listening, and it's like, yeah. It sounds good. I work hard. I do all these hours because I have my own story of like that what is it, that switch that got flipped, and I said, this
Yeah.
is it, no more. And some people it seems to happen, and some things it doesn't. But you've worked with thousands of leaders.
Yeah.
What would you say separates them in terms of the mindset? What are the ones that stay stuck? What's different from those who actually grow?
Great question. And I think when you first invited me, and we've known each other for a long time, and I've been following you, and you've been following me. And when you said, "Hey, listen, do you want to come and have a chat with my chaps?" I thought, "Oh yeah, great. This like the perfect. Your audience are the perfect people to understand what I'm just about to say. I think better than anybody." Just before I tell you the thing, I want to ask you this,
Yeah.
and I'm kind of asking your audience more than anything. A lawyer came to us years ago, and she was called Alina, and she said, and she was a solo practitioner, solopreneur. She just got past the bar, right? She just hung up a shingle, and she's now a lawyer, and she's not making any money. And she came to us and said, like, I can't, why aren't I making any money? Like, and I said, well, let's just think about that for a second. There are some fairly large, and I mean humongous law companies in Miami, right? And I asked her, I said, do those guys, the big guys, what you might call successful guys, and there's lots of ways to measure that, do they know more law than you do? Like, did they go to Harvard and you went to Miami-Dade, right? And so the guys that went to Harvard learned the Harvard laws, and you only learned the Miami-Dade laws. So, like, they have an advantage over you because they learned the clever special laws and you didn't learn, right? So you only know the second-class laws and they know the first-class laws. And clearly that's not the case, right? It's the same law. It's the same law for everybody. What they have figured out is how to build a law practice. And it's got nothing to do with the law, right? Okay, so that's kind of the first tiny principle I'd like you to think about. And the reason I was excited about talking to your guys is because if you think about it, when people join a gym, baked in, like you got 5 kids, did you say?
Yep.
I got 4 kids. Was there ever a day, Billy, think back to when they were younger. Was there ever a day when your youngest was like 1 year old, right? Who's that? What's the name of that individual? Who's your youngest?
Full disclosure, I have a current one younger than that. So yeah, her name is Hannah.
Hannah.
Yeah.
How old?
She's 5 months.
Right. Has there ever been a day so far with any of them and with Hannah where you said to yourself, I'm just not feeling the love for diapers today. Just not feeling it. I don't think I'm going to change her diapers today.
No.
Or was there ever a day when you thought, I'll feed her tomorrow? Does she have to eat every day? Like every day? What's wrong with this girl, right? Because baked in to parenthood is you have to change diapers. you have to feed them. You have to clothe and protect them and all of that good stuff. It's not optional, yes or no. Another way of saying that is discomfort is baked in, yes or no. Like there's lots of good stuff, but it baked into parenthood is discomfort. Your clients, your audience who's selling gym memberships, if you think about it, what they're doing is baked into change, baked into the pumping the iron and doing the weights and jogging and fitness and flexibility and stamina and diet and looking after themselves. Baked into that transformation is you're asking them to buy into discomfort, yes or no? Yeah, you are. So when the discomfort associated with growing the business, listen to me now, the discomfort associated with staying where you are until that balance tips, you're not going to make that change.
Wow.
Now, so mindset, the right mindset is I have to accept, I have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. If I'm going to grow this business and I'm going to start to pay myself and I'm going to grow the business that gives me the lifestyle I want, whether that's huge and wealth beyond the avarice of kings or just to kind of like pay the bills, and either are entirely laudable and credible, you have to make that decision and you have to say, and I think your clients is whether they're going to all throw something at their computers or laptops or phones and turn off. If they're going to be authentic and expect their clients to get comfortable being uncomfortable, they are being inauthentic if they're not prepared to do the same. And so to grow your business, you have to accept that you're going to have to do, because listen, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And lunacy is doing the same thing again and again and again, expecting different results. So back to your original question. What do we say to leaders that want to grow their business, right? In other words, they're here and they want to be here. However you measure that in terms of funding yourself and financing yourself, because if you're not paying yourself, it's a passion project, and that's okay. As long as you say this is a passion project. But when you say, no, this is my future, this is the thing I am going to get known for, this is going to be my legacy, this is going to be the thing that I'm most proud of, and I am going to be Cortez about it, right? Yeah. Until that day, right? Until you go, and it's baked into the gig, like parenthood, like changing nappies, when the last thing you want to do are diapers. The last thing you want to do is diaper. Until you get to that point, you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it. And I think your guys that own gyms in the main, you are being a fraud if you expect people to give you money for you to help change them, but you won't change yourself.
I love that. Antonio, quick follow-up to that. Speaking maybe to a different person,
Yep.
I've gotten uncomfortable. I've done some of these things. I've pulled myself out of the day-to-day, and things are pretty good. I'm able to have enough to support my family. I have a little bit of extra. You mentioned earlier that I think you mentioned there are ways to sort of force the commitment or force. Yeah, I'd be curious about, even for myself, if I'm totally honest, because I want to watch out for it. Yeah, I'm doing pretty good, and then not continuing, because I have this natural thing of just wanting to continue to grow, which I think people have. Just curious of your thoughts on that.
Two stories. One, there's a guy we coach he's the CEO of a $38 billion organization. So not a small company. Guys,
not bad.
yeah, right. You can't live off it, but it's a start. Anyway, he had an issue, been wrestling with for a little while. We'll call him George. That's not his real name. And by the way, and this is an interesting point, I think. George asked me one day, before he became a client, he said, how much is your coaching? And I just So he's the CEO of a $38 billion organization. I am going to answer your question, I promise,
Yeah.
Billy. And he said, how much is he coaching? What do you imagine he would have said if I would have said it's $50 an hour? What do you think he would have said?
Yeah. I'll pass.
Right. So I said, well, George, I can tell you now it's going to be somewhere between ouch and faint. Right.
Mm-hmm.
What do you pay your most expensive outside counsel? And I think he said $2,500 an hour. I said, well, that's more ouch. Do you want to know what faint is? He said, what? And I said, $3,000 an hour. He says, okay, I'm in. And that was, at that point, was my highest paying client per hour.
Mm-hmm.
What had changed between yesterday's advice to people and coaching and today? It's another mindset, it's another belief, it's another Roger Bannister issue.
Mm-hmm.
Is it? Scroll forward 6 months. And I said to George was struggling with something. And I said, George, you've told me countless times that you need to do this thing, right? Your words, not mine, correct? Yeah. And you haven't done it. And every time I ask you why, you say it's because of this and this and this and this and this and this. Sounds like you didn't mean it when you said it originally. He said, no, I did mean it. I said, but you haven't done it. He said, no, well, because of this, this, this. I said, okay, George, what would you say to your people if they'd have told you that? He'd said, well, I'd have just told them to find a way. I said, so let's just agree, George, that you don't want to do it. You're not going to do it. You're wussing out, right? And kind of embarrassed him a little bit. He said, no, I'm going to do it. I said, I don't believe you. He said, yeah. I said, have you got your checkbook to hand? He said, yeah. I said, write a check now for $10,000 out of your personal account to a charity that you don't support. And he went, why? And I said, because then if you don't do it, you've got to pay that check in. He said, no, I don't need to do that. I told you I'm going to do it. You've been telling me that for months. I said, no, I'm a man of my word. I said, well, you haven't been so far. So write the check. And if you don't do it, you're going to pay that into a charity that you don't support. He says, right, then I'll do it. I said, well, do it. And he got his checkbook out. Big huff, big drama, right? And he wrote, it's $10,000. He said, you tell me a charity. And I gave him a charity. And he goes, right. And I said, and if you don't do the thing, George, you're going to pay that into a charity that you don't support. So he said, yeah, but I'm going to do it. I said, good, because if you do it, that's not going to cost you anything, isn't it? So he said, about a month later, he sent me an email and said, you were right. I did the thing. You were right. It worked out. I should have done it months ago. And I paid the check in anyway. Right. The point being that I needed to, in some way, trap him. Right. Where he was like, now he was committed, wasn't he? Instead of just kind of, there's a difference between being involved and committed. I used to have a boss, eggs and bacon. Do you know that story? The difference between being involved and committed. The chicken's involved, but the pig's committed, right? So we talk often about, are you going to be a chicken or are you going to be a pig, right? In terms of that kind of principle. Okay, so another example, super quick. And it refers to, and it's the story's in the book, so do read the book to get the full story, but it boils down to this. There was no fishing, there was no regulation on fishing in Japan in the 70s. So if anybody had a boat, they could just go out and catch fish, right? And the lot, hundreds of, Japan's a bunch of islands with like endless coastlines and millions of fishermen that live along. And they would just get in the boats and go out and fish and come back and cook some for the family and sell whatever's left at the market. But there was no fishing, there was no regulation. And so what was happening is, that the fish were getting smaller and smaller. They were overfishing as the population increased. They were overfishing off the coasts. And this story, I'm going to tell you, it's going to blow your mind. So, and the Japanese loved their sushi and high quality fish and all that kind of stuff. And what was happening was the fish quality was going down. The fish were getting smaller and smaller and smaller, younger and younger and younger, because it was being overfished, and there was no government body that was trying to regulate that. So what was happening is the fishermen that wanted to get the better fish had to get a bigger boat, and they had to go out further. So now their costs have gone up, and they're going out further to get fish, and they were bringing them back, and the cost of the fish was going up. And then that was getting overfished. So then they were getting even bigger boats. And now here's what happened. It tipped that they were getting quite big boats. They had to get staff, crew. They had to go out. Now, instead of going out for a couple of hours and coming back, they had to go overnight and maybe out for 2 or 3 nights. I'm giving you the short version of this. Bringing it back, and the Japanese palate was going, there's something wrong with this fish. It's not as fresh as it should be, because now it's 3 days old instead of caught 2 hours ago. Costs were going up, quality was going down, everybody was going bananas. So then some other guys then got huge boats, right? Lots of crew out for days. They were catching them. There were ice-making facilities in the boats. They were freezing them, bringing them back to, the harbour, and selling frozen fish. They were thawing them, but the Japanese palate go, there's something right. It's not right. Frozen fish doesn't taste like fresh fish. And this was going on and on and on. And then one company said, I'll tell you what we'll do. We're going to get massive boats, ships with tanks of seawater. We're going to catch the fish. We're not going to freeze them. We're going to put them in this thing full of seawater. We can be out for a couple of weeks, and we'll come back and then kill them when we get back, and it's like freshly caught. But just in a few days, the fish were getting fat and old and flabby and just awful. And anyway, this was the end of the Japanese fishing industry, because there was no other solution that anyone could think of. The guy that owned the largest fishing fleet, his mate, his best friend, was the guy that ran Tokyo Aquarium, and they were having. And he was saying to him, I'm at my wit's end. I don't know what to do. We've got this billions invested in ships. We're catching them. We're putting them in the tanks. We're bringing them back, and nobody wants the fish. And the cost is up, and the quality's down, and I'm ruined. I'm done for. And the guy that ran the aquarium said, well, just put a shark in the tank. And he said, what do you mean put a shark in the tank? He said, well, just put a shark in the tank. That'll keep them swimming. And he went, yeah, but the shark will eat all the fish. And they said, well, the shark will eat some of the fish, but it'll only eat the slow fish. It won't eat the good fish. So that's what they did. They put a shark in each of the tanks. They went out and caught the fish. And by the time they got them back with the shark in the tanks, they're all like Usain Bolt. It was the best fish anyone had ever had, because they weren't fat and lazy in the tank. They were swimming for their lives for like days, right? They were super fit. And I heard this story, and I then said to my business partner, if we want to grow this business, like seriously, like we mean it, we need to put a shark in our tank. What shark put in our tank? And every 6 months, we had a shark in our tank meeting to make us Cortez. Our first shark in our tank meeting, we had a business, it was cooking, everything was good. We kind of plateaued a little bit. And I said, I'm going to buy the whole second floor of our business. We're going to 6 or 7 times the size, the square footage of our business. We're going to kit it out like it's the best, like the best university, the best training, the best. It's going to be phenomenal, and it's going to cost us a fortune. And it's almost like build it and they will come. And then we've got 2 choices again. We either die on this beach, right, like Cortez, or we go forward. And we bought the whole second floor. Cost us a fortune. We were terrified, but we didn't die. We doubled the business. And we doubled the business again, and we doubled the business again. And within 2 years of that, talking about, because for the first 2 years, I hadn't paid myself anything, just like you said. 2 years after that big momentous meeting, and then we continued, I think I paid myself 2.5 million that first year after that.
Yeah, that reminds me. I think I did this even unintentionally. Well, maybe intentionally, but I didn't know that story. We 2 years ago. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but I had this thriving gym business in New York, and we decided to move 1,000 miles from the business and start another business. And here we are. And things have worked out, and I think it's part of that because it was like we're not. Yeah, if we really had to, we could move back and all of that. So it wasn't really burning the boats, but it was to a large extent because we really weren't going to do that. So I love that. Antonio, I'd love to transition
Yeah.
before we start wrapping up here. We're just going to transition with a very brief discussion about everything sales and leadership. Seriously, some of the things that jump out to me the most about the things you talk about are, and these are so powerful. Please don't miss this. These are two things that Antonio says it, and I'm going to back it up.
Okay.
They will change your life. And if you deny that, you are wrong. I will fight you on it for forever because I'm living proof of this. The first is the power of reflection. I know that's a kind of like a broad word, but
Yep.
it's so important. And the other is, and this lends itself to both sales and leadership. It is, and it's something you've heard before, but really don't miss this, the depth of this. And it is the power, and you can see from Antonio's answers that he almost never answers the question, right? And when I say that, I mean directly, right? So there's always a follow-up question or a story. So really, what I'm thinking about is the power of questions. We've been so ingrained to just give answers.
Yep.
When the guy asked him how much he charged, he didn't just say 3,000. He started off with a response, a question and response. So this way, he can get to his point. I know those are two kind of broad things, but I wonder if we can tie them together in terms of our sales and leadership.
I think there's a great. I think there's a law. Um, um, two things I'll say. First of all, like if your guys can, your audience can just write down these four rules. If they can write down these four rules and somehow assimilate them, right? Understand them. This will change everything. Because at the end of the day, we are all just humans, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the rules are these. And this is kind of like the golden rules of sales. This is the golden rules of marketing. This is the golden rules of coaching your people. It's the golden rules of leadership. I think it's the golden rules of parenting. The golden rules of many things. Here's what it is. Number one, they never believe what you tell them. So they never believe what you tell them. Rule
So
two,
good.
they'll rarely believe what you show them. So they never believe what you tell them, number one. Number two is they rarely believe what you show them.
Wow.
Number three, they'll sometimes believe what somebody else tells them, social proof and so on. But rule four is they always believe what they tell themselves. So your job then is to, if you said to a prospect, for example, hey, listen, you need to join our gym because we're great at this, we're great at that, we're great at the other, and we're tremendous at this and tremendous at that. They'll nod and they'll smile and they'll go, okay, right, because they're socialized and they're not lunatics, right? They're not psychotic in any way, but inside, whilst ever they're nodding and smiling, inside they're going, I don't think so, right? Because it's your data. So leadership, coaching, training, managing, parenting, all of that is a data management issue. Wow. So if I tell them, we're great, this is terrific, you should let us do this, we're wonderful at that, that's my data. And rule number one applies. They never believe what you tell them. They'll sometimes believe what you show them, but even then, it's tricky. I remember I had to, when we first went to Miami, I took a bunch of money with me, right? And when I bought my car and my office, my photocopy and all of that stuff, there was some money left. And I said to my wife, I need to put it into, I need to do something with this money. I'll put it into an account. And I went to 2 banks. We'll call one of them Fells Wargo, and we'll call one of them Mace Chance Hatton, right? And I said to the bank manager, why should I give my money to you? And the first guy showed me a whole bunch of graphs because when money invested with us and And I went, okay, well, that makes perfect sense. So then I went to the Fells Wargo guy and I said, why should I give my money to you? And he showed me a whole different bunch of graphs with everything going up and to the right. And he went, this is why. They both told me the same with their own data. And I went to my wife, I'm not buying it. So that's rule number 2. They'll rarely believe what you show them. Like they were showing me stats and data and all of that kind of stuff. Rule number 3 is they'll often believe what somebody else tells them. What does that mean? That means you get really good at getting testimonials and referrals, like really good at it. Because someone else that doesn't have a horse in the race, right? And so get those, like when somebody says, why should I, join your gym? Go, I don't know enough about you to even say that. Would it make sense if I share with you some of the things that some of our other clients say? Maybe that'll help. That's a question leading to rule number 3. They always believe, they often believe what somebody. But rule number 4 is they always believe what they tell themselves. So that means, come back to your point, Billy. Hey, George, who's a prospect, for example, or it could be somebody that you coach. It could be an employee. Hey, George, in order for me to really understand what's going on, it would be okay if I ask you a whole bunch of questions. Some of them might be tricky, but make the best use of your time and my time. Does that make sense? You comfortable with that? So get permission to ask questions. Then once you've got permission to ask questions, do we then ask good questions, Billy, or bad questions? We ask really, really good questions, right? So the book talks all about asking really, really intelligent questions. Because if we ask them dumb questions, we're going to go down that kind of trusted advisor triangle. But if we ask really smart questions, we're going to go up it. So make sure that you ask questions, here's the point, so that they say to themselves, these guys know what they're talking about. And then rule 4 comes into play. They always believe what they tell themselves. Mm-hmm. If you ask really smart questions, they say to themselves, man, these guys know what they're talking about. And no one ever argues with their own data. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
Rule 4 at play. So if we can get permission to ask really smart questions, and then we ask really smart questions, I mean really smart questions, then they sell themselves.
Here's a perfect through line. This is just it's interesting how this came together in that we talked about the idea of getting comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I can think of no better way to do that than to get comfortable being uncomfortable asking questions. I studied that book. I have pages of notes around that book. And full disclosure, the person who I asked this to is probably listening. And I challenged myself to ask the question, Antonio, if you remember the one about the hotels, right? Are we talking, or?
Oh, yeah.
Is it, 3-star, 4-star, 5-star. You'll get that if you read the book. But it was uncomfortable for me because I'm like, I sound like a jerk asking that question. But it worked out beautifully when I asked that question. So I think that's the challenge is it's so easy to show you my biceps and to tell you about how great I am, or even to show a testimonial, like we can get to that point. But when maybe we don't have all the answers and we're just trying to pull out of the prospect, what their challenges are and helping them come to their own conclusion, it is hard, but you will not reach your potential. I know this because I saw it in my own business. You will not reach your potential without embracing the difficulty of doing these things.
Get permission to ask questions and ask really, really, really good questions. I interviewed a couple of FBI agents before I wrote this one. Mm-hmm. And if you think about it, that's their job. Their job is to get to the truth, right? And they do that by having questions prepared in advance. It's not like in the movies, right? They've got it all figured out in advance. And if any of your guys go to an important prospect, an important client, or an important coaching session or important meeting without having a pre-call plan,
Yeah.
you don't deserve the success, right? Your pilot
Yes.
has a pre-call plan before he gets on his plane. So does your surgeon. So does your
Yeah.
architect. So does your accountant. What makes you
Yeah.
any
And
behave like the professional you want to be paid to be?
amen. And I'll get off my soapbox in a second, but some of you have a quote unquote a script, but it's a cookie cutter script that you use for every single client. I know because I did it, and you will get better results that way than with having nothing. But you are, and I usually don't speak this directly, but you are putting more preparation into your workout than you're putting into this 30 to 60-minute meeting that could change the client's life, could change your life as a business owner.
Would it help, Billy, if I give you an example of a good question versus a bad question? Would that help?
100%. And if you like, we can even pretend I am the prospect, if that's helpful.
Well, for sure. All right, so let's pretend, and genuinely, people are going to think they spoofed this. And honestly, we haven't. I promise you, we haven't. Let's imagine so let's just do it in my world for a second, and I want your guys to think, what would that question be in my world? And
Mm-hmm.
you don't know what it is. At the end of it, I'll tell you what the question is in your world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's pretend you're the CEO of a business, right? Let's imagine, just to keep the sums easy, to keep the math easy for me, so I'm not terrific. Let's pretend you have 100 people, just for a number, right?
Sure.
So I can do percentages that way if you've got 100
Yeah.
people. Right? So let's pretend you're the CEO of a company. It doesn't matter what industry, that genuinely is unimportant. There's 100 people in the business, and I'm going to ask you 2-3 questions. Pretend I've already got permission. Billy would be all right, right? So pretend all of that's been, and I'm going to go. So, how many people work in the business, Billy?
Yeah, right now we have about 100.
Okay, so let's pretend then, standard distribution bell chart, you've probably got 20% like rockstar A players, you've probably got 60% B players, and you've probably got 20% C players. Standard distribution bell chart. Make sense, Billy?
Yeah, that's spot on.
Okay, let's talk about some of those C players for a second, will we? And bear in mind, of course, just kind of off script for a second, the owners of businesses know who the people are that give them the headaches, right? They know who those C players are. But anyway, back into role play. Well, give me the name of one of your C players.
I would say Johnny is a good example.
Yeah, let's talk about Johnny in a second. Give me two more. So we've got Johnny,
We got Becky,
Becky, and give me one more.
I'll say Rob.
Okay, Rob. What's Johnny's role in the company?
Johnny's he's one of the sales managers.
Sales manager. Becky
is operations.
ops, and Rob
is he's an assistant.
Okay, an assistant. Okay, how long's Johnny been with you now?
Johnny's been with us 2 years.
2 years. Becky
is 4 years.
4 years, and then Rob
about 12 months.
12 months. Okay. Listen, difficult question, Billy. It's difficult to ask, and it's going to be difficult to hear. But so Johnny's in sales, been with you 2 years, C player. Becky, ops, 4 years, C player. Rob, an assistant, 12 months. Let me ask you this. These guys are all C players. So tell me, did you hire them like that, or have you made them like that?
Yeah, fortunately, I hired them that way. Thought they would get better, and just it hasn't happened.
Okay, so just time out just for 1 second. Did you hire them like that, or did you make them like that? There's no good answer. You've either made them like that, in which case there's something screwy with your culture. You've hired them like that, in which case there's something screwy with your HR recruitment policy.
Yeah.
You don't know, which means you don't know what's going on in the business, right? There's no good answer. Whatever the answer to that, did you hire them like that or did you make them like that? Absolutely shines a spotlight on the CEO's ability to run the business well. Because if my follow-up question with them would be, listen, if Johnny and Becky and Rob weren't C players, there were B players. And if half of your B players were A players, what difference would that make in your organization? Now we're into a conversation about the business would go through the roof. And I would say, what would you do with the extra money? I'd do this, I'd do that, and I'd grow. And now we're giving him a dream, and it's all his own business, it's all his own data, rule 4. And I'm going to then say, and I'm not trapping him because this is all his own stuff. And then I'm going to go, so look, Billy, I don't know much about your world. You said that would all, like 4 million. Is that a little or is that a lot? Is that worth getting excited about or not? And in 16 years, no one's ever said no. Mm-hmm. Okay, so is that something you want to do something about? Yeah. Well, you haven't done anything about it so far. Why? Right? And then really press test them and challenge them, right?
Yeah.
So, not in an aggressive way. Remember, it's all about tonality, and I got permission to ask these questions. Mm-hmm. If I didn't get permission to ask these questions, you're going to feel attacked. But if I did get permission to ask these questions, and I'll often say, look, this is like who's responsible for all of these issues, Billy? And like I'm going to say it like that and touch, like, right? And you're going to go, I am. That's me. I'm going to go, okay. Well, what should we do about that? And then it's like, well, what can we do? Then asking me for the solution rather than me giving them the solution. I'm going to go, well, this could be a few things. Do you believe that people are important? Yeah. Developing your people, is that important? Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, show me your calendar last week where you had a coaching session with Johnny. And he's going to go, I didn't do it. Why?
Things have been so crazy. You just
right. You haven't, Well, the week before that, IT issues. Well, the week before that, then big customer coming. Well, the week before that, then, well, I'm going to go. Listen, sounds to me that we've got some work to do. That, like, does that sound? How does that sound? And they go, yeah. And it's not that we've tracked them. It's a process of guided discovery. By asking the right questions, they say to themselves, you're right, I need to fix this. And I haven't said we're the best people in the world to do that. Not once ever. Not once said we're the people. Not once said we're the cheapest you can find. Not once said. All I've said is, do you want to do some discovery on that? Do you want us to do some audits? Do you want us to do some assessments? Yeah, do some assessments. But they're $1,500 each. You've got 100 people. You could maybe discount it a bit. How many is in your senior team? 30. Well, so that's like, I don't know, that's like maybe $35,000. Is it worth it? And they go, yeah. Why? Well, okay, so what should we do next? Send me an invoice, 35, and we're away. And I haven't told him, we're great at this, we're great at that, we're great at the other. Haven't told him anything. But if you ask the right questions, they tell themselves.
That's good. And the biggest thing I'm pulling out of that is it's habitual, right? It's not something, you're not going to do this the first time and have all the perfect questions. It's going to be a process. So embrace the suck.
Right. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. One of my top, coming back to what you said either, the reason it's difficult to ask difficult questions is because we don't want them to think that we're being difficult, but we're not. We're just genuinely trying to figure out whether or not we can help them. And so you either feed your ego or you feed your children, right, Billy?
Yes.
So feed your children is better than feeding your ego, I think.
I love it. All right, Antonio, with all of our guests, I just ask a few questions to wrap up. I'd love to do that if you're up for it. But before that, one thing you notice Antonio does not do, and I've known Antonio for a long time, and one day, I'm sure I'll ask Antonio questions about my own challenges, but he's never sold me. I've never felt sold. In fact, we have a book club that we run, me and a bunch of special buddies of mine that Antonio knows, and we read a book every single month. And this is an exclusive club. It's a closed club, and we've read lots of books together. And many of the authors I did have contact with, and Antonio is the very first and only who offered to actually join our live book club, which was a really special moment for me and the boys.
Nice.
So Antonio, that just a reminder to show up different is what I'm getting there. But Antonio, the first thing I want to know is people they want to learn more. We talked about the books. Where else can they go? What else can they do to really to better themselves and to engage with some of this?
Yeah, well, I don't want to say the book's great. We just won genuinely last week the best business book of the year award. That's not I didn't set up the award, right? Other people did that. So My Daily Leadership is the name of the book, or just go to all the W's, mydailyleadership.com. Have a look around. My email is Antonio at mydailyleadership. If anyone has .com. If anybody has any questions, genuinely send me your questions. I'll even edit them and send them back. Like, for real. I think I am a big believer in just be good and good things happen. Just pay it forward, and people, just be as generous as you can be with your time and energy, and it comes back to you in spades. So write to me, and genuinely, give me 72 hours, but it'll come to me somehow through the filters, and just say just say Billy's podcast, and I promise to help you out. But just have a look on the website. There's a bunch of resources, free resources and material there. No obligation. No one tries to sell you anything. You don't have to call anyone. Just download a bunch of free stuff. And if you know somebody one day who says they're struggling with something, you might go, I know a guy. And then rule 3 applies.
Yes.
Someone else.
I love it. All right. So the first of these kind of rapid fire questions is: Did you wake up and you were born into the perfect leader and sales expert? What's an area that maybe you struggled with that you overcame, or maybe a failure that turned into a powerful lesson and success? Something that we can learn from your career.
Okay, great question. And I know it's rapid fire, so I'll be quick.
That's all right.
Blind spots, all of us, every single one of us. Trouble is, we don't know what they are. So you have blind spots, Billy. I do. Everyone that's listening, you don't know what they are. Get an assessment. We have assessments for that. There are other people that do. Ours is genuinely audited, and it's the best, but that doesn't matter. Get an assessment to find out what your blind spots are. Because until you know what the problem is, like a doctor would take an MRI, an X-ray, and blood test and history before they try and prescribe what the solution is. You have blind spots, whoever's listening. You don't know what they are. If you know what they are, write them down. You can't, because the blind spots, right? Get an assessment. Get a coach. Doesn't have to be me. Billy's good, right? Get a coach, because they'll help you.
If you tell yourself I have no blind spots, then I might have one in mind for you. That's a great answer. The second one is, I know for a fact that you are a huge advocate of reading. You are a tremendous reader yourself. This is a super hard question, I'm sure. Anything around books, so maybe it's a book that changed your life, just like asking questions the Sandler way changed mine. What's a book that you could recommend? It could be finance, business, leadership, or even a book you're reading now.
The book that, you're right, I've read a lot of books. The book that changed my life was The One Thing.
Nice.
The One Thing. I've read that book maybe 5 or 6 times, and genuinely it changed my life. Don't just read it. Pay attention to it. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
Does the one thing change over time?
Yeah, The One Thing does. Yeah, it does. Now that I'm, as you know, incredibly ancient and old, now it's about legacy, and
nice.
It's which it wasn't before. At first it was about something else, and maybe at its root it was pride, and it was about I think it started as pride, then it went into I kind of pride for myself, and for what the things I told myself about myself. And then when that first business that was my own business instead of running businesses for other people, then it became, I think, about I was incredibly proud to say we have a whole bunch of families that depend on us. So it kind of went from my pride to my pride in other people's success. Then
Mm-hmm.
it went to, I think, legacy. And I know that here we are towards the end of October, that if I went under a turnip truck tomorrow, I don't want to say there is this generational wealth, but my children and their children wouldn't have to worry. And I've put the businesses now run without me to the extent that if I went under a turnip truck, all of those families would stay healthy and happy and employed and good. So, and then I think recently we've been doing a lot more for charity and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, the last one you kind of answered it there, but maybe there's something else. What else is there? So the question is, what you've done a lot, you've learned a lot, and you've certainly created a massive amount of impact, even just in myself, let alone thousands of others. But what would you say is left in terms of, I don't know if you like the word bucket list or something else that is on the horizon you want to do, experience, accomplish in terms of legacy or anything
Well,
else?
yeah. So a few. I've written a few books.
Mm-hmm.
Next spring, a book that I wrote with my daughter is coming out. So I'm very proud about that. She runs this business out of my daily leadership. She's the COO, and she effectively runs this company. The business in Miami takes me 45 minutes a month.
Wow.
Pretty good. We just, we went to India for a month this year. I think now, I guess if you look at like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I mean that's
Mm-hmm.
self-actualization. Um, I just try and I don't want to overstate it. I don't want anyone to canonize me and think I'm a saint. I just I now get a kick out of helping others, whether that's books for children's literacy or whether it's for yesterday, as an example. It was great to be able to say we were talking about somebody in the business yesterday. And if you think about this, think about how far we've come from that first year of doing like 57K.
Yeah.
It's not a big issue, but this just happened yesterday. I got a real kick out of. We were talking about somebody who did a really good job, and I said, "This is going to sound bad," but I said, "Well, give her a bonus, like that was over and above, right? That was
Mm-hmm.
really really good stuff. So give her a bonus." And then the other person said, "How much should we give her?" And I said, "Well, I don't know, 10, 20,000, whatever you think is the right number." She was very proud of her car. I said, find out how much she pays on a car and buy her a car, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Only because it sounds bad, but to be able to do that without having to think about it is it's great. You know what I mean? It's
Mm-hmm.
just great. So I get most enjoyment now through helping others. My bucket list, I want to do Japan, but my wife won't let me go. So, so my bucket list, I don't know. I think I've done most of the things I want to do. Just write more, just to write more, I suppose.
Love it. Yeah, we were sitting in church yesterday, and I think my pastor said that people who are others focused are 90% happier than those that are not. So it
Right.
makes a lot of sense. Well,
Yeah.
Antonio, you've given us so much in terms of your time, your knowledge, your wisdom. I just want to thank you. I'm super grateful for our time.
Very
This
well.
was truly special. I will remember it well, and I know we're all better for it. Thank you for embracing your discomfort so that you not only can improve your own life, but help so many in the process. Truly grateful, Antonio. Thank you.
Put a shark in your tank. You're very welcome.
There you go.
See you later.